So I thought tonight we could talk about presence and absence, right? They appear opposite, right? Two different dimensions. So these terms come out of about maybe 1800, 2000 years ago, as Buddhism migrated into China. It took on a different flavor because it came into a culture, a relatively mature culture for that age, that um, had a underlying, you could say, spiritual understanding of the universe as Taoism, right? Very integrated with the reality of this world. And so as Buddhism migrated into China after maybe 500 years or so in India, um, it came into the civilization that appreciated Buddhism's uh, devotion to meditation to bring us to a place of recognition of this original mind. In other words, consciousness absent of content, or not necessarily even absent of content, but the recognition of consciousness prior to whatever content might be arising within it. So that was the gift of Buddhism when it migrated to China. So that actually, even the word for meditation in Sanskrit, dhyana, became chana in China, and that was eventually shortened to Chan Buddhism. So that was a precursor, sort of the earlier Chinese version that later migrated to Japan and became Zen Buddhism and took on a distinctly Japanese flavor there. And that's the flavor that more or less got imported to the US over the last half century. So what we're talking about here is a particular understanding that first arose in China with this cultural basis of Taoism, and with the influence of Buddhist meditation, basically. So what they did with that is kept the meditation. They saw the value in bringing us to a place of recognition of our innate awareness. That had value. Right. What they tended to discard is all the other metaphysical baggage that they felt actually wasn't necessary. So we have this very distilled form that Bodhidharma, who was considered the first patriarch of Zen, talked about being beyond words and scriptures. Right? So it's not like words, not like it was dismissing words and scriptures, but it was saying that what we essentially are is recognized to be beyond words and scripture. So there's an interesting transformation of a particular term in Indian Buddhism, and the term is Dharma, and it's often seen in the phrase Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, sort of the three aspects of the spiritual community surrounding the Buddha, with the Buddha being a historical a teacher, and Dharma being a teaching, and Sangha being the spiritual community. And so that's the sort of original meaning of the term Dharma, a teaching, a way to get from this shore to the other shore, there was that sense of it crossing over to something beyond what we currently are. Um, and it was the way, it was the path, it was the teachings that were essential to go from here to there, right? Okay. So what happened when that concept arrived in China? It was sort of filtered through this um, cultural um, Taoism that was probably most eloquently and originally spoken about by Lao Tzu and Chuan Tzu, who were sort of current to Buddha, 2500 BC, 2500 years before now, 500 BC. So when this term Dharma, which really meant the teaching, the path to get from here to there, became in as it merged with Taoist thought, it came much more like sounds so much the path, the structure. It's more like that's how life is. There was an essential sort of beingness to it, sort of an innate pattern to how things move, how things evolve. So it wasn't so much a written law imposed on existence. It was more like how existence sort of manifested itself. And so phrases like the Dharma, the 10,000 Dharmas, talking about things coming into existence, not through man-made laws or man-made structure, but just that was the nature of things, to just come into existence at some point, have a lifespan, um, recede back into their original nature again. And we can see that in the outside world, in the world of form. We can also see it in our own head, in our own conscious experience, where a thought arises from who knows where, has a certain lifespan to it, has a certain character to it, certain feeling to it, certain duration, and then at some point it recedes back into whatever formless existence it arose from, right? So within Taoism, there were these what appeared to be opposite dualistic concepts: absence and presence. Right? Presence just means the appearance of, well, everything. Right? Mm-hmm. And so Lao Tzu talks about, in perennial absence, there's mystery, and in perennial presence, there's appearance. And he says, although they look different, they differ only in name, and in fact are one and the same. And before naming, in other words, characterizing, in other words, imposing a mental overlay on whatever it is that we're experiencing, before that, they're just two aspects of the very same thing. So this is very similar to the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And it's just a different way of saying it. Presence and absence are not two different things. And absence doesn't mean void. Right? Sometimes in like Indian Buddhism, there's a lot of emphasis and almost devotion to this idea of disappearing into the void, never again to return, no rebirth. Okay. But this is quite different from that. This is like the recognition that what we experience moment to moment, the appearance of everything, all occurrence appearing moment to moment, is arising from a place of mystery, right? all happening in this present moment, in this constantly renewed present moment. And so in this way, this sense of um, absence is not, it's not a void, it's not a negation, it's potential. It's the potential to become um, everything. Everything manifest comes from this um, potential, and it manifests as this potentiated forms um, through sort of an inner pattern, right? Certain way that scientists try to come at it and impose, draft laws that seem to reflect what they're observing. But the actuality of it is that um, things things occur as themselves, thoroughly as themselves. Whether we're talking about, you know, trees or animals or humans or a thought or whatever, they appear as their potential manifested. So the idea of, potential being any different than the actualized falls apart. And we just see, well, that's how things are, right? I mean, is that not our direct experience? Is it not your direct experience that everything that we ever experience is happening moment to moment in this capacity that we can call by many names? I mean, we can call it original nature, we can call it no mind, we can call it empty mind, we can call it Buddha nature, we can call it prajna wisdom, we can call it Christ consciousness. We call it any number of things, but to try to spend our time looking for hair-splitting differences between all of those kinds of terms, they're all pointing towards this one direct experience that's available to everyone as is, as long as we, aren't, as long as even for a moment we can relax this tendency to try to figure everything out and just be with what is actually happening. And what's actually happening at every moment is this awareness. You could call it absence, you could call it original nature, whatever you want to call it, but just this capacity to be present for, notice everything else. Absence, being present for whatever presents itself. Absence and presence. Okay. And as long as we just stay right exactly at that moment of, you could call it creation, where the form of the next moment comes into existence, as long as we can just stay right on that edge, nothing more is actually needed. We can do nearly everything that we need to do just by remaining at that exact moment. Not by trying to be at that exact moment, because we couldn't be anywhere other than that exact moment. It's just relaxing our insistence that we need to impose our mental naming structure, our tendency to want to figure everything out, trying to impose that on top of what our actual direct experience is. And when we can relax doing that, what we find is that there is this sense of presence, not too much can be said about it. I mean, certainly alive. It's not a dead presence, but it also doesn't change moment to moment because any change implies form. And what we're talking about is the sense of absence or original nature, no mind, again, whatever you want to call it, is um, has this sort of attributeless quality to it. Right? It's almost like, the gaze of an eternity, noticing whatever is happening within its field, right? When it's looking through these eyes, it looks like this. When it's looking through your eyes, it looks like whatever it looks like there. Same gaze. So we can spend a lot of time trying to get to some place where um, we can find this peace and stillness, or we can simply notice that that is what um, this deepest sense is already doing. What confuses it is that we impose, we provide ourselves with evidence, mostly through learning. We impose this belief in this identity center, me. It's me having this experience. It's me as a separate entity thinking these thoughts. It's me as separate from all the rest of existence that has this life story. We're not denying the life story. We're not denying this particular experience. We're not denying this body, none of that. But what we are suggesting is that when you go looking for this separate particular identity center here somewhere, it's nowhere to be found. All it's found is this spaciousness. So we can get spooked by that. We can run away from that. We can argue with that, or we can notice that that's sort of how it is. A little odd at first. Okay. Okay. Only because we were taught something else. We were taught that we were separate and distinct. And then when we really deeply investigate, what we find out is that actually not. Actually, this that's gazing through this organism is not personal. Feels personal. Feels personal because it's the deepest sense of this beingness, right? Again, original nature, right? Empty mind. So it's not having to empty out the mind. It's just seeing that whatever notices the thoughts in the mind is already, its nature is already prior to all that content. It's just this capacity that we all have. It's where we all live from already. The only thing is that we take credit for it. No, it's not, you know, life living through me. It's me. I'm doing it. You know? And maybe that's a necessary step in the evolution over the course of our lifetime. But at some point that becomes less than fully satisfactory. And perhaps then we might be able to consider what our actual direct experiences, which is this formless absence, spaciousness, mirror-like quality, receiving, reflecting, and then learn to live with that recognition. So it sounds like we're removing ourselves from life, but actually, what it does is frees us to live life fully, fully without fear, because there's a recognition that what we truly are isn't subject to the comings and goings of form.